Supporting Netanyahu's war against Iran would be a catastrophic mistake.
All right, people. Bernie Sanders gave an address on his YouTube channel, at Bernie Sanders YouTube. Good to see it. We like to keep up with Bernie and see sort of what's going on in his mind and from his perspective regarding all this. Without further ado, Bernie Sanders.
Thank you very much for joining me. In the year 2025, one might have hoped that the global community would be working together to address the existential threat of climate change, working to prevent future pandemics, working to address the massive levels of income and wealth inequality that exist, working to improve the standard of living of struggling people all over the world. But tragically, that is not where we are today, quite the contrary. Instead of addressing the major crises that we face, the world is now looking at the terrible war in Ukraine, started by Putin, which has taken hundreds of thousands of lives over the last 3 years. We are looking at the horrific war in Gaza, where, as we speak, thousands of Palestinian children are facing starvation due to Israel's inhumane and illegal war policies. And now we face a dangerous and escalating war in Iran, which was begun in violation of international law by the extremist Netanyahu government. And the main point that I want to make today is that it is absolutely imperative that the United States not be dragged into this war. Let me say a word about how this war began. On Thursday, Netanyahu launched an illegal and unilateral surprise attack on Iran, bombing targets across the country and killing hundreds of people. Iran has responded with attacks of its own, which have killed dozens of people in Israel. Whatever you may think of the corrupt and authoritarian Iranian regime, Israel's attack clearly violated international law and the United Nations Charter. While every country has the right to defend itself, they do not have the right to launch so-called preemptive wars of this kind. But let's remember who Netanyahu is. He is a war criminal under indictment by the International Criminal Court for starving innocent people and killing civilians in Gaza. At this very moment, in Gaza, Israel continues to prevent the UN from delivering humanitarian aid. And just today, in Gaza, Israeli tanks fired into a crowd desperately trying to collect food, killing at least 59 people. So it should come as little surprise that Netanyahu ignored international law to start this war with Iran. But Netanyahu's decision to strike also directly contravened the express wishes of the United States, which was seeking a diplomatic resolution to the long-standing tensions around Iran's nuclear program. In recent months, the United States has held 5 rounds of negotiations with Iran to resolve these long-standing concerns. Let me repeat. In recent months, the United States has held 5 rounds of negotiations with Iran to resolve these long-standing concerns.
Which now, as far as we understand, it's quite possible that those negotiations were happening under false pretense in bad faith to sort of act as a distraction or basically a distraction to let Israel get the upper hand on the surprise preemptive attack that they were going to carry out. So take that as you will.
A 6th round of talks was planned for Sunday, but Netanyahu chose instead to start this war. So let's be clear. Israel's attack was specifically designed to sabotage American diplomatic efforts. In fact, in its first round of strikes, Israel assassinated the man overseeing Iran's nuclear negotiating team. And let's also remember that U.S. intelligence has never indicated that Iran has made the decision to build a nuclear weapon. Just a few months ago, Trump's own Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, testified to Congress that, quote, the intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, end of quote. But Netanyahu chose to attack, crippling diplomatic efforts and risking a full-blown regional war. He is now openly talking about regime change in Iran and threatening to kill the political leadership of that country without any thought to the chaos that might ensue. Let's also not forget that the current Islamic regime in Iran is itself the product of a Western-backed coup in 1953 that overthrew the democratically elected government of Iran and replaced it with a corrupt autocrat. The critical question now is whether the United States will get dragged into Netanyahu's war. In my view, that would be a disaster. The United States must not be involved with another Netanyahu war, not militarily or financially. The United States Constitution is crystal clear. There can be no offensive use of military force against Iran or any other country without an explicit authorization from Congress. No such authorization exists, and any U.S. involvement would therefore be illegal. The United States has...
This word illegal is, I feel like getting, sadly, really unfortunately, I feel like is getting less and less significant as the years go on. I feel like we've gotten so beyond the pale of illegality in so many instances, and just like with war specifically, how they just continue to expand the definition of like terror or terror states or terror acts, and however they were able to authorize any of the military actions in the Middle East in the last like 20, 30 years have all just been probably, well, actually just definitely illegal. But nobody seems to care. So it's like if you are the US government, or if you are the final arbiter of illegality or legality, then it doesn't matter. And especially now that we've seen Trump go all the way up and through the Supreme Court, and they've said, well, yeah, anything that Trump does or anything the president does, in this case now Trump, is part of his duties, and therefore he can do no wrong, even if he's breaking the law. Then what does it all mean? I mean, I'm just asking these questions, just so we can sort of have this conversation. But the law strictly applies to so many people, but then in some of the most important instances, when we're talking about bombing and invading and toppling and destroying and killing, then all of a sudden, legal or illegal become totally irrelevant. So very fascinating where we've come to, unfortunately.
The United States has already provided hundreds of billions of dollars to Israel over the last many decades. Last year alone, U.S. taxpayers provided more than $22 billion in military aid to Israel. Meanwhile, while providing massive aid to Israel, we have Americans sleeping out on the street, unable to afford health care or other basic necessities. Enough is enough. President Trump ran as a supposed peace candidate. In his inaugural address, he said, and I quote, "My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier." That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier.
Jesus
End quote.
Christ.
Very fine words. Trump should remember them today. Supporting Netanyahu's war against Iran would be a catastrophic mistake. Instead of going to war, Trump must work with the international community to rein in Netanyahu and urgently push for a diplomatic solution. Netanyahu's illegal attack has made the world a more dangerous place. The United States must not be a part of this war. Thank you very much.
There you have it. Bernie Sanders, everybody. I just love how he covers everything so clearly. So it's saying, why couldn't he be president? Damn it. We deserved Bernie. We got 2 terms of Trump and Biden. What a world we live in. So there you have it. Bernie covering all the bases. You heard it there yourself. We're on the precipice, everybody. We're on the brink of something. Hopefully, cooler heads prevail. But I have no confidence in Trump and his mental faculties and his ability to handle or negotiate, the great negotiator, to get us out of this situation. So we will see. Let me know your thoughts, comments, subscribe, and we will keep it all in the loop.